Welcome to the Ortotech Garage. My name is Keith, and today I'm going to be giving you some valuable tips and tricks on how to jumpstart your car properly and safely. This is extremely important, guys. I have a client not too long ago that brought her Lexus into me. Her neighbor decided to give her a hand and jumpstart her car for her. He came over with his electric golf cart, 48 volts worth, and completely destroyed all of her electronics in her Lexus. I don't want this to happen to you. You need to know exactly what to do and what not to do. I'm going to walk you through every step of the way. Let's get out in that garage and get after it right now. All right, here we are in the garage. Before we get started, I want to talk a second about preparation, getting your car jump started. There's some things that you want to make sure you have. Obviously, we need a set of jumper cables. Not only do you need jumper cables, but you're going to need jumper cables long enough to get you from your donor car, I should say donor car over here, donor car to your dead car. Okay, so you might be close enough you can get a set of 5-foot cables in, probably not. The longer cables that you have, the better reach you're going to have. It's not always easy to get these cars next to each other. Sometimes the battery is way on one side of the car and the other battery's on the other side, or maybe it's under the seat somewhere inside the car. You want to have a little bit of flexibility in how far you can reach with these cables. Longer the better, and the thicker the better. So if you can get yourself down to some 4-gauge jumper cables, they're going to allow you to pass the most amount of current easily, and that's going to be the name of the game when we're trying to jump start a car. In addition to that, we're going to be dealing with batteries. You guys have seen me wear these before, but I always recommend you keep a set of these latex gloves in a Ziploc bag, maybe 2 or 3 sets, in a Ziploc bag in case you have an emergency like this. You have to jump start a car. There's nothing you can touch underneath the hood of a car that isn't filthy and greasy, and especially when we're jump starting a car, you're going to be working in and around the batteries, which are loaded with acid. Acid is very corrosive. Just touching some of this acid is going to start eating at your skin. You're going to start feeling itchy and irritated right away. Avoid that hassle. Put a pair of gloves on. That'll save you. After you jump start this car, you can peel them right off, throw them in the trash, get in your car and drive away like you didn't touch anything. So jumper cables, gloves, and of course, safety glasses would be smart. I'm not the smartest guy out there. We're going to do this demonstration without them, but you should be wearing them. I'm over here at our dead car. I want to show you what this setup looks like up close. I want to show you where we're going to be making connections on this. I want to show you what a bad connection looks like on this car. So let's get right over here and take a peek. A couple things you need to know. Generally speaking, your red terminal is your positive terminal. This is not always true. Sometimes people change the colors of the caps, the connections, they put the cable in the wrong direction. Maybe they'll replace a cable, but they put a black cable in place of the red one. So don't go by colors. This is not the best way to do it. Look at the markings on the battery. I'm going to be showing you some images here up close so you can get a look at that. Make sure you're looking for the plus symbol on the battery and on the terminal if you can find it. And the same thing on the negative side, you should be looking for the minus symbol or the negative symbol somewhere on the terminal. If you don't have those markings, there's one other way you can identify the positive and negative connections at the battery. The positive terminal always has a larger terminal. The lead post on it is going to be a larger diameter than the negative one. So if you're looking straight down on the battery, we're going to show you this up here as well. If you look straight down on the battery, you're going to see the positive bigger than the negative. That's how you know for sure. Another thing I wanted to show you on here is this connection right here on this negative cable is completely corroded. It's falling apart. One of the auxiliary wires has broken off of it, rotted off. The connection is loose. You should not be able to move connections like this. So a little tip for you, you may be having trouble jump starting your car, or you may be having trouble starting your car, and maybe the battery is fine, but your connection is horrible. This should not come off by hand. It's missing the clamping feature that allows this to be tightened up on the post. So check these things before you try to jump start your car. This is not always the reason your car won't start, is that your battery is dead. It could be because you just have some poor connections at your battery. So let's take a look at that before we get started. Another way you can identify your negative cable is it may be connected, like this car is here, directly to the strut tower. You would never do that with a positive cable. So anytime this is a short cable that connects from the battery to some metal component on the car, that's clearly the negative cable. This vehicle is slightly different than the one we just looked at. This is going to be our donor vehicle. You're going to notice there's no battery right here. What the manufacturer has done is they've routed some jump points to a convenient location so that you don't have to access the battery. This one is identified with a plus. The cable's red, the cover is red. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see the terminal on the battery, but you can use the same principle that I told you about on the other side. Anything that's connected to the body of the car is a grounding point. So we're okay to connect a positive lead here and the negative lead here. Let's do that. All right, step one, we're going to connect the positive lead to the dead car. Right here. We're going to want to clamp on this terminal as tightly as we can. Make sure it's got a good solid connection on it. Step two, we're going to take the positive lead of the jumper cables and we're going to connect to this positive jump point on the donor car. You want to make sure this thing is on here tightly. It's got a good connection. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. Make sure it's firmly clamped onto that post. Step three, we're going to take the negative and we're going to connect it here to the negative post on this car. Now you could use one of these other ones. It shouldn't matter all that much, but this one here is going to be the best terminal on this particular vehicle. All right, guys, the final step here, step four, is to connect the negative lead to the dead car. This is actually the most important step. This is the area where you might get a spark jumping from the connection to wherever you connect it. We don't want that spark to be anywhere near the battery, especially if the battery is leaking acid. The best place to do this is a grounding point somewhere away from the battery. Now we're lucky here, we've got some connections at the top of this strut tower. This would be a great spot to connect that. We're going to go ahead and hook this up right now. Again, we want a nice solid connection. And if it should spark, we're not anywhere here where the gases are just lingering above the battery, waiting to ignite. You definitely do not want to ignite these gases. This battery could easily burst. Okay, we've got all four connections made. The most important connection was the one I told you. I want to repeat it again. The final connection is on the dead car, not at the battery. At a grounding point somewhere away from the battery, possibly the engine block, the strut tower. All those are good areas to do that. Let's get in here and start the donor car. We're going to want to let this car run for a period of time before we try to start the dead car. We need a little bit of time for this alternator to generate enough power, enough current to give that battery some life. It's going to use this battery, yes, but it's also going to use a little bit of that battery, whatever we can supply to it. So let's let this run for at least 5 minutes or so. I'm not going to make you watch that. If you have to, it helps sometimes to rev the engine on the donor car, maybe about 2,000 RPMs. You get that alternator spinning a little bit faster, generates a little bit more current, and help you charge that dead battery a little bit quicker. You can go inside, just put your foot on the gas, just for maybe 5 minutes or so. You want to get this engine RPM up about 2,000 RPMs, and we're just going to hold it here for about 5 minutes. Let's give that dead car a little bit of electrical life. All right, so we've let this car charge for a few minutes now, a couple thousand RPMs from the donor car. We're gonna hop in here, step on the brake, and see if we can get this car to run. There you have it. Great, guys. Car started up just like we expected it to. We're going to let this dead car run for a while now. We want to make sure that the alternator in this car is going to be charging the battery back up. We're going to safely disconnect these cables. We can shut off the donor car. We're good to go. One important thing you need to know, we want to reverse the procedure when removing these cables. If I take both of these cables off at the same time, and for some reason I should touch these together while it's still connected to the donor car, I've got a short circuit. I can do some damage over here to the donor car. I'm going to get some sparks for sure. We don't want to do that. We're going to take off one cable at a time. We're going to remove it the opposite the way we put it together. We're going to take the negative cable off first. Lay that off to the side over here on something plastic would be great. We're going to go over to the other car. We're going to remove the negative cable from there. Then we can remove the positive cable on the other side, and we can remove the final connection. We're completely disconnected from the vehicle. Let's go ahead and wrap up our cables, stow them away where they belong, and then everybody's ready to drive on down the road. All right, great job following me on that one. I hope everything makes sense to you. There were a couple of things I wanted to mention to you before I let you drive out of here. One of them is, how do you really know if your vehicle needs a jump start or not? There's a couple little tricks that you can use. One of them is just kind of turn your headlights on. If your headlights turn on and they're bright, that usually means you've got a good battery. I mean, you've got plenty of power. Now, that's not always the case, but it's usually a good indication that maybe there's something else wrong. Maybe you've got a starter problem or a wiring problem or ignition problem or some of those things. If you turn your headlights on and nothing comes on, usually means you've got a dead battery. If you push your push button and you hear like the machine gun sounds, that usually means you have a dead battery. If you hit this button and you hear like one solid click, may not be a dead battery. You might have a starter motor that's not engaging properly or something. So use the headlight trick. That might help you determine. Always check those connections at the battery. If you've got some that look like the one I showed you today, you got to fix that before you go any further. You might just have a bad connection at the battery. We need really clean, solid connections on the battery terminals and battery posts. So just a little tip for you. I hope you guys really enjoyed the content here. I want to make sure that you're doing this safely out there. You're not doing any damage to the vehicles that whether it's your donor vehicle or the dead vehicle. We don't want to blow any fuses. Never hook your cables up backwards. Never let those two cables touch each other for any reason whatsoever. Always make sure you're following that procedure. Where you're hooking up one at a time on separate cars and then working your way around. Last connection, always on the dead car, away from the battery. We don't want any sparks. You don't want to ignite any of that acid. Wear your gloves and just be safe out there. I think you guys have got this. It's not that difficult. One other thing I guess I could mention, battery cables are not the only way to jump your car. There's other devices out there. There are portable booster boxes now where you don't even need a donor car. You can just connect it. I do recommend you get one of those. I gave one to all my kids. They keep them in their car charged up. In the event they get a dead battery, they don't need an extra vehicle to jumpstart the car. They can use this little booster pack. You hook it up, you press a button. It's good for a couple of jump starts, generally speaking, and you can be off and running without any help. So definitely something worth investing in. Maybe I'll give a little description down the link of some of the tools that you can buy if you want to be able to jumpstart your car without a donor car. Lots of devices out there. I'll put a couple links of a couple of decent ones. I'm not affiliated with any of those companies. It's not making any money on it. Just some ideas for some things that you might want to buy. So I just want you to, before you leave, take a look at this next video we got coming to you. It's just a simple one. It's about how to put your wiper blades on your car. I know it sounds simple, but I've seen a lot of people struggle with it. I want to get you that knowledge out there so you can go down to the local parts store, get yourself a set of wiper blades, put them on pretty easily without having to come visit me and ask us to put them on for you. I'm happy to do it for you if you need it, but something you can simply do yourself. Thanks for watching.